Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a seriously complex and honestly pretty heated situation unfolding right now in Thailand's Prachinburi province. We're looking at a profound, real-time conflict between this massive national industrial expansion plan on one side and local agricultural communities fighting tooth and nail for their livelihoods on the other. So let's dive right into the data, the quotes, and the actual facts on the ground to see exactly what is at stake here.
Now, if you know Prachinburi, you probably think of its traditional, pristine identity, right? It's this incredible agricultural haven right up against the beautiful Khao Yai National Park. And it's famous nationwide for Abai Hubajaher organic herbs, which are basically a cornerstone of traditional Thai medicine. But looming over all that pristine green imagery is a really stark industrial reality. There are already 890 factories operating in the province, and a massive government project called the EEC expansion is on the horizon. This isn't just some hypothetical fear about the distant future either. It's a clash happening right now between organic farming and heavy industry.
So, here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. We'll start with the EEC expansion plan, move on to the opposition from locals, unpack the social media posts drama, look at the lessons from Cha Chong Sao, and wrap up with the escalating protest.
All right, Part 1, the EEC expansion plan.
So, what exactly is the Eastern Economic Corridor, or the ECC? Well, it's this massive government initiative that actually started under the previous NCPO government and was officially cemented by the 2018 EEC Act. The whole goal is to create these special economic zones to essentially turbocharge foreign investment and industrial growth. It originally focused on Chachuing Sao, Rayong, and Chonburi, but now the government wants to extend this zone straight into Prachinburi. To get this moving, an Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA, was done by Thammasat University. But here is the catch. That assessment is highly controversial among the locals. Protesting groups, especially the Prachinburi Strong Network, are basically saying that this report completely ignores the severe air pollution and waste management crises they're already dealing with every single day. They argue that if the baseline data is that flawed, the whole expansion is built on a foundation that totally ignores reality.
Moving into Part 2, opposition from locals.
890. I just want you to let that number sink in for a second. According to data presented at the Epigram Forum on this exact issue, that is the total number of factories already operating in Prachinburi province. For a place literally famous for its forests and organic agriculture, that is a staggering figure. The locals aren't just resisting the abstract idea of industry. They're looking around at 890 existing facilities and asking, how on earth can our environment possibly handle any more?
And we aren't just talking about light standard manufacturing here. Out of those 890 factories, 70 are specifically Type 105 facilities. In plain English, that means Prachinburi is already a major hub for processing industrial trash. Add to that 85 officially identified environmental risk points, which are locations with a known history of pollution, illegal dumping, or operating without permits. But honestly, perhaps the most alarming thing for the local organic farmers is the plan for 5 new dams. These are specifically designed to divert massive amounts of water away to feed these new industrial zones, which obviously threatens the very water supply those farmers absolutely rely on to survive.
That brings us to Part 3, social media post drama.
There is a huge disconnect in communication and trust right now. On the official side, Kirki Danchevich, the EEC Deputy Secretary General, publicly promises that only green industries or future-focused technologies are actually going to be allowed in this new expansion. The argument is that the EEC will actually help manage zoning and clean up pollution, but NGOs and the locals point to a vastly different reality. They point to the 70 existing waste facilities, data showing hundreds of companies operating as foreign nominees, where locals just hold licenses on behalf of foreign owners, and a really severe lack of environmental law enforcement. When the government says green industry, the locals literally look at their current environment and just don't buy it. And then a social media post made all of this distrust deeply personal. Okay, so during a protest where villagers traveled to submit a petition to the EEC office, the Deputy Secretary General Kirki Danchevich was photographed receiving their documents. But shortly after that, a leaked line chat surfaced. Underneath a photo of himself with his hands raised a bit unevenly in front of the protesters, he wrote, "The hand gesture is not playing the fiddle, don't misunderstand." Now, to get why this completely exploded, you have to know the Thai idiom playing the fiddle to a buffalo. It's basically the exact equivalent of saying you're talking to a brick wall or casting pearls before swine. It heavily implies you are trying to explain something complex to someone who is simply too stupid to understand it.
Well, as you can probably guess, the reaction was immediate.
Major environmental NGOs, specifically NLaw and Earth, publicly demanded to know if the Deputy Secretary General of this massive government project was openly mocking the Prachinburi villagers, effectively calling them buffaloes. While he hasn't issued a formal clarification on his socials, this incident just poured gasoline on the fire. For the villagers, it completely validated their deepest fears, that the policymakers in Bangkok look down on them, dismiss their concerns, and view their entire agricultural way of life as backward. The distrust wasn't just about policy anymore. It was fundamentally about respect.
Which leads us to part 4, lessons from Chachoyesao.
Let's actually hear directly from the people on the ground in Prachinburi. This is a really powerful piece of testimony from Pitsamai Panchet, a 56-year-old local farmer who joined the protests. She says, "My river is already rotten. We have jobs, but foreigners are invading to seize our land and resources." She's making the point that they don't actually need the EEC to bring them jobs. Their communities are already fully employed in agriculture and local industry. But what they are experiencing right now is the rapid degradation of their home. She's living with the reality of those 890 factories today. Her river is dying right now.
And her fears are completely validated by people who are currently living inside the existing EEC zones. Parani Pakpong, a resident of neighboring Chachoyesao province, which was part of the original EEC rollout, actually joined the Prachinburi protests to deliver a really stark warning. She told them, "Every day smells like chemicals. I urge Prachinburi people to fight. Don't let it be too late like Chachoyesao." Parni describes how, since 2018, agricultural land around her home has been systematically replaced by copper smelting plants, aluminum factories, and waste sorting facilities. She essentially represents the ghost of Christmas future for Prachinburi. It's this lived experience from their neighbors that is fueling the absolute refusal of the Prachinburi network to back down.
All right, our final section, Part 5, Escalating the Protest.
So, the Prachinburi Strong Network, they have consolidated their movement into 3 very specific, non-negotiable demands. First, they want the EEC expansion canceled outright, but they won't accept verbal promises anymore. While some politicians claimed the expansion was halted, the protesters are demanding the official, legally binding signature of Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul, who actually chairs the EEC Policy Committee. Second, they demand the strict enforcement of the polluter pays principle. They want the government to deal decisively with the illegal waste dumping and the rogue factories already operating in their province before anyone even suggests new developments. And third, they're demanding a complete shift in vision. They want the government to promote localized growth that uses Prachinburi's existing potential, like its organic agriculture, tourism, and herbs, rather than turning it into what they fear will just be a toxic waste dump for the rest of the nation.
And since they feel like these demands are just being met with silence, the timeline of their actions shows a really clear escalation. They started out by playing by the book. Step 1 was traveling to Bangkok to formally petition the EEC office, which of course resulted in the whole social media drama we just discussed. When that didn't yield an official cancellation, they moved to Step 2, a relentless 7-day continuous protest camp right outside the Prachinburi City Hall. They hung these massive 40-meter banners and demanded the provincial governor take their side. And now, due to what they call a total lack of genuine response, they are initiating Step 3, upgrading the rally and marching directly to the government house in Bangkok. They are bringing this fight from the provinces directly to the center of power.
So all of this boils down to one really massive overarching question at the heart of this conflict and frankly at the heart of modern development. Must industrial development always come at the cost of the environment? The government argues that the EEC is vital for Thailand's future economy and that it can absolutely be managed cleanly. But the people of Prachinburi, who are looking at the factories already in their backyards and the polluted rivers in neighboring provinces, fundamentally disagree. As this protest heads straight to Bangkok, it forces all of us to ask what kind of growth is actually sustainable and who ultimately ends up paying the price for economic expansion. It's a fascinating, critical situation, and we will definitely be keeping a close eye on it. Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer, and remember to keep asking the tough questions.